Has a new CDC ruling set cruising back much further than it appears? The first US cruise lines make vaccines mandatory. Is Alaska cruising a no-go this year? Are Europe river cruises off the cards for non-Europeans? What cruises have children actually been banned from? This is the latest of my cruise updates, where I unpick the latest developments and what they mean for you and for me as cruisers. There's lots to cover, so let's get going. As I was just finishing off this video and getting ready to go live with the video, some big breaking news came around Alaska. I had been talking about the big hurdles for Alaska opening, but one of the big hurdles has now become a huge issue. Canada have announced that they have put a ban on all cruise ships for a year, right through to February 2022. This means that it's likely that there will be no Alaska season, since no cruise ships are able to call into Canada. And under US law, all ships that leave from Seattle or any other part of the US or call into the US, so call into Alaska, have to call at a foreign port, and they all call on Canada. It's extremely unlikely that the US will lift the Passenger Act, which requires that. So certainly that is a huge deal. And it certainly looks like the 2021 season is going to have to be cancelled. The actual order bans adventure-seeking pleasure craft, all passenger vessels carrying more than 12 people, and all cruise vessels carrying 100 or more people are prohibited from operating in Canadian waters. Importantly, also, the Canadian government strongly increases advice for Canadians not to go on cruises anywhere in the world. More to come as this happens, but the Alaska season you're likely to see being cancelled because of this ban. There is a reminder that no one knows when cruises will be returning in the US, and in fact beyond that. It's certainly not soon. This has just, as I record this, been confirmed by Richard Fain. Now, he's the head of the Royal Caribbean Group, and in his most recent video he said, and I quote, "My answer is consistently, I just don't know." Lots of speculation, of course, that it could be as late as July. At the very start of February, the US CDC issued an order on the wearing of masks on all forms of transport. So that included trains, it included planes, taxis, ride shares, and of course, cruise ships. And it has some really big implications for cruising when it returns, especially in and out of the USA. The rules, I believe, are so much stricter than the lines have proposed in their various kind of return to cruise protocols. And they are even harsher than what is in place for the Italian and German lines that have been sailing within Europe. There's also a very key ruling in there about testing and vaccines that I think most media reporters on this whole order, they seem to have missed, but more on that important development a little bit later. First of all, the CDC order says, and I'm going to quote here, "Conveyance operators traveling into or within the United States may transport only persons wearing masks and must use best efforts to ensure that masks are worn when embarking, disembarking, and throughout the duration of travel." Now, they also go on to say the masks must be worn until your actual arrival at your destination. There are four really big things that struck me on the order and digesting the whole order that I want to talk about. First of all, and probably the most important, masks covering both your nose and mouth, they have to be worn during the entire journey, except, and another quote here, while eating, drinking, or taking medication for brief periods. Now note the emphasis on entire journey and on brief periods. This entire journey ruling is a pretty big one, and it seems to follow much more the approach used in Asia rather than in Europe. Now, for example, Royal Caribbean Quantum of the Seas, that's currently sailing out of Singapore, they require all their passengers to wear face masks in pretty much all public places, both indoors and outdoors, regardless of any physical distancing measures that are in place. So even if there's physical distancing possible, you still have to wear your mask. So for example, there's some quite crazy rules where you have to wear a mask around the pool and only take it off when you're actually in the pool itself. Now, this particular CDC order makes wearing at all times, even when distancing is possible. And that's really, really important. The second thing that struck me is the lines will have to have really strict enforcement, because the order says if people do not comply, the carrier should, at the earliest opportunity, disembark any person who refuses to comply. This mirrors very much the Singapore approach. Royal Caribbean was forced to actually increase monitoring mask wearing, and they had to increase the amount of warnings to guests because they felt that they just weren't being strict enough. So strict enforcement. Thirdly, everyone over the age of 2 has to wear the mask. This does seem a pretty low age, but everyone over 2. And the only exception for not wearing a mask is if you are a registered or have a registered disability and you cannot safely wear a mask. And it does sort of imply you have to have some form of documentation. Now, fourthly, and this is really key too, masks are still required for anyone that has either been vaccinated or those who've recovered from COVID-19. Now, the CDC says the reason for this is that, and I'm sorry, but it's going to be another quote here, vaccines are highly effective at preventing severe or symptomatic COVID-19 at this time. There is limited information on how much the available COVID-19 vaccines may reduce transmission in the general population and how long protection lasts. I know that's a little bit wordy, but basically you have to have a mask irrespective of vaccines or you're recovering. Now, of course, once you see the technical details for the test cruises, which are required by the CDC, will have a little bit more detail, but a pretty big change, I think. Now, in a really big development, another big development, 2 more cruise lines and the very first US-based ones have announced they are to make vaccines required, joining Saga Cruises in the UK. Now, the lines are the American Steamboat Company and Victory Cruise Lines, and they will require vaccines from the 1st of July. And by then, that's when they're estimating their passengers, their target passengers, will have had the opportunity to actually have been vaccinated based on the timing of the rollout. Now, there's also a development, again in the United States, that I think makes it likely to make it easier and may eventually even require the lines to go down this vaccine route. The CDC, in that recent order, said that travel operators like cruise lines can, and what they actually say, impose requirements or conditions for carriage, as well as requiring evidence that the person does not have COVID-19. So clearly the CDC are giving permission for lines to lay down conditions on who they will and won't take. So for example, they could say you have to have a vaccine. And it really seems possible to me that as the CDC is now requiring the wearing of masks, they're requiring testing as a condition of cruising, another logical step could be adding vaccines to that, because they've already said they see these as the most effective way to stop serious illness from the virus, as I've already discussed. Now, the CDC requiring vaccines would, of course, make it much easier for the lines to move down this route. It is really worth noting that 50% of cruise passengers, based on data from CLIA, the Cruise Line Association, are over 60, and almost 3/4 are over 40 years of age. The biggest age group of passengers on board cruises is actually the 60 to 69 year of age. So these sort of ages we're talking are the ones that are all very high on vaccine priority lists. So they are likely to have had their vaccine before cruising resumes. So lines that focus on those age groups like the US River Cruises, Saga Cruises, who went that way, it will be interesting to see whether others with that sort of profile also follow. Quite a few people have been in touch to ask what's going on around children being banned from cruises that they've seen various blogs, vlogs, and articles talking about. It's really important to note that there is a ban on children, but it's a very specific ban for a very specific activity at a very specific point in time. The CDC requires test cruises as part of the return to sailing, and they have said that only people over the age of 18 can go on the test cruises. No children are allowed on those cruises. There is no other plan or news around children being banned from cruising. Of course, if vaccines are required, then it is possible that there may need to be some kind of dispensation or ruling. But it's hard to believe that children would be banned as cruising resumes. So at this point in time, there is a ban on children, but it's a very specific ban. And no doubt, as we come closer to cruising and as the authorities and the cruise lines assess the requirements around testing, vaccines, whatever they may be, the role of children and cruising will be addressed in some way. The other thing I get asked a lot for updates is river cruising, mostly around river cruising, a little bit around the US. So I thought I would touch on that in more detail. Now, there has been some recent news and updates on river cruising. We are seeing some lines pushing the hoped-for start to the season into May, and we've even seen June now with TUI River Cruises. They've just moved into June. So we're seeing lines shifting along. But importantly, there's also been a big river cruise industry meeting, virtually of course. There was 30 of the river cruise line members taking part, and it revealed a lot. What they said is they see this year effectively being a transition year after the wipeout of 2020 and what they think will be a big return in 2022. Most of the lines are not expecting return of all of their fleet, and a lot of them are expecting to bring back at most half of their ships. And it all hinges on which travelers that they actually cater for. So the lines with mostly European guests, so cruise lines like Crossy Europe, they're still hopeful they could start sailing in April, May or June. But lines that rely on English-speaking guests, mostly, of course, from the United States, so that's things like Ama Waterways, for example, they say when and how the season starts is going to really depend on when travel between the United States into Europe opens freely. And they think this is going to hinge all around the pace of vaccine rollout on both sides of the Atlantic, and that's going to be the big determinant. Now, they hope, of course, that if a significant number of Americans are vaccinated for COVID, which of course is possible because much of their audience is in that older age group who have priority, as we spoke about earlier, then they do think that river cruise ships and river cruise lines that cater for North Americans could be back in operations late in the summer, so July, August time, or maybe just a little bit after that. The cruise lines are also working on the assumption, which I thought was very interesting, that they think that airlines or countries in Europe are going to make vaccinations a requirement to travel freely and without restrictions, which of course would also, if that does happen, make Americans perhaps more able and more willing to join European river cruises, certainly those that have been vaccinated. The protocols that were used in the very few 2020 sailings are going to remain in 2021. They include reduced capacity, mask wearing, pre-boarding health screenings, COVID-19 tests for crew and in some cases for passengers, daily temperature checks, and the removal of things like self-service dining. So all those protocols we're pretty used to. So if you want to river cruise in Europe this year, again, push your booking to as late in the season as you possibly can is my advice. American river cruise lines like the American Steamboat Company and Victory Cruises, they are hoping to resume in March, April. They, of course, will only have COVID-19 testing as a requirement with vaccines coming in the middle of the year. Now, on my website, Tips for Travellers, I keep a constantly updated list by month of when both ocean and river cruise lines aim to start sailing, so you can keep up to date there with the changing situation. The link is in the notes of this episode. So I hope you found all of this helpful. I have hundreds more Tips for Travellers episodes packed full of cruising updates, tips and advice. So why not enjoy another one right now?